Is this approximately the size of it?
Yes.
Of a
Yes, it
square?
is. Yes.
You have to work with the approximate dimensions here. All right.
What are you doing?
I'm showing you
might
how to
wanna film
conserve.
this. Oh,
You're supposedly supposed to have some survival skills, Neil. You know.
Well, I don't even know what you guys are talking
travel
about.
out.
Tell me first.
This is a piece of toilet tissue. Pretend
No,
you just broke.
you're filming, but you should be learning.
Yeah, I am learning.
Okay. Well, I mean, when you're on the road and how you make a square a day. This is what they teach the
Survival
SEALs,
experts,
the Marines, everybody in the field.
The
right now.
Rangers.
How you make one square last. Very simple. You fold it one time. Fold it 2 times. And try to get a third fold in there. Right. Now, you got that much, right?
Yep.
Now, take a little piece off the quarter here. Do not lose this little piece. All right. Now, open your square. You do your business, right? You kind of do your thing. How you clean yourself. Then you very carefully, very carefully take it.
Wipe off your finger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Throw it away. Now, this is where this comes in. This is you get under the nail. Now you see how they get by out there.
Okay, nice.
We have here Kenneth Millman, the oldest son of the Henry and Eleanor Millman. What we're going to do today is ask Ken some of the memories he has. Excuse me. Mom's house in Santaquin, and we have Ken visiting with us over the weekend for the Christmas vacation. So anyway, Ken is the oldest brother in our family.
Also the best looking and smartest.
Best son of first son of Henry and Eleanor Millman, and he's not always with us. So anyway, what we're going to do is ask Ken to recall some memories he has of his mom, of Eleanor.
All right. Well, when you asked me, it kind of cold turkey now for the.
It was for us
memory.
too when we did it.
Now, and I don't know why this memory pops into my mind, but it's pretty vivid. All right. I guess I must have been like about, and this is one of my earlier memories, probably about 9 years old. And I think Dean, my younger brother, was in the car too. Mom was taking us in a Nash. Do you remember a Nash, Mom?
Nash Ambassador.
Huh? The Nash Ambassador. Now, Mom was driving, and let's see, I was in the passenger seat. You remember this, Mom?
Yeah, I do. It's from Vermont.
Okay. Oh, it was Vermont. Okay, not North Adams. It was Vermont.
So
and we were going.
This is what I'm thinking.
But Mom was in a little bit of a hurry, and this is an example of what not to do with little kids. Anyway, she wanted me to get out of the car fast, or get. She was going to park the car, and I was to get out of the car.
Oh no! Now I know it's that.
Now you know where I'm going with this. Okay.
You both have different versions of the story.
Oh, but this is why this memory pops into my mind. So anyway, I got out of the car, but Mom didn't stop the car. So
You got out before I stopped.
I got out before the car was stopped, and I got caught between the door and another parked car. And it was a crushing experience for everybody. Mom, me, passers-by. Nobody knew what had happened. But fortunately, I lived to tell the tale. And I'm really super anal with my kids around cars now. How's that for one?
Very good.
Okay.
Very, very good.
See, I didn't know about making sure you would stay in the car. I didn't know that.
We didn't have seatbelts in those days.
He was anxious to get out to go to the movies. That was it.
Hey, going back to me. This is one of Dad now. This is shortly after I was married, and we came to visit Mom and Dad, and we took a little trip up to High Rock Canyon.
Black Rock or High Rock?
It might have been Black Rock, as memory serves. Okay. And we had a great time. I believe we took the trailer, and we did some camping. And at that time, I had, I believe I had two kids, Chantel and Bethany. Chantel was probably 5, Bethany was probably 3.
Yeah.
And there were Mustangs out there. And there were some beautiful horses. And Chantel loved horses. And Grandpa he was verbal, and he said, well, if you can catch one, you can have them. And so she took that to heart, and she went after some Mustangs. Now, apparently, Dad figured, well, wild animals are going to run away from people. Well, that's not always the case. And Chantel, all of about 2 feet, 2.5 feet at the most, starts going after these horses with a rope. And as she kept getting closer and closer, and then we could see the bears were starting to get a little antsy, but there was this one stallion that started coming her way. And I think Dad changed his mind at that point about catching horses.
Yeah, I could just see him running to the rescue.
Everybody got everybody's attention, but that I clearly remember that. Dad didn't always make the clear choices. That's where I get my sense of humor now. Back to David.
Back to me now.
Right.
3.
When I was 5 and Dean was 3, I became a national hero. Yeah, I made all the newspapers. Dean and I, this was Williamstown now, Massachusetts. And it was spring, but a cold spring.
It's March 21st.
It's spring. Oh, you remember the date? Okay, March 21st. We lived in the country, and cow country. A lot of cows, a lot of hills, a lot of mud in the runoff. Now, Dean and I was taking Dean to a place that my gang, who were a bunch of older kids, used to go to all the time. It was like a little secret place. Behind the Sorrells and the Freniers, way back. And it was where the older kids would go to smoke or whatever. And it was kind of a neat little spot. But anyhow, so we crossed over the fence, and it was muddier than I remember. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves up to our waist in mud. Very thick mud. Very soft, thick mud. And I was able to get out, but Dean was kind of stuck there.
He had a snowsuit on.
We had our snowsuits on now. We had our snowsuits on. And so I couldn't get him out, and he seemed to be sinking as I'm trying to help him more and more.
Just standing there, not crying.
So no, nobody lost
The composure.
the composure. But we were very mature kids at that age.
Crying.
So I decided,
You were crying.
well, I can't remember exactly what's happening. That's hearsay. That's only hearsay. Anyway, I did run for help. And apparently, I do remember some of the neighbors coming. I was able to, I think I got to the Freniers first. And Bill Frenier was I later came to know was basically the street's token drunk. Very fat guy.
The village drunk.
The village drunk, maybe village idiot. But he had a big gut on him. And Bill and I think it was Mr. Wagner. There were a couple, and I finally got. I think maybe
Get
even
something, a rope or something.
yeah. I don't know if you or Dad. I don't remember you or Dad being there.
No, I was there.
Oh, you were there. Okay.
I was there because I
So-
sent you to get the rope from Bill
So
Frenier.
apparently, I do remember that. And I do remember everybody ganged around Dean trying to pull him out. And he was down. He was down pretty far by the time we got back to him. He was probably up to his chest or maybe a little deeper than that.
Yeah.
So, but I do remember the memory I have about Mom in this whole episode was the local newspapers were out in force the day after, documenting this, taking photos. And the photo that ran in the newspaper was Mom was showing me my jacket, holding the jacket up, and I still hear the words Mom is saying. That's your mud. That's your mud. Well, of course it's my mud. I knew that when I was 5.
The funny part of the whole story was that when Bill Fournier struggled up the street bringing a rope, it was nothing but knots. It was so old. It was knots. And I was trying to direct him to Dean, who's in the mud, and that wouldn't have worked anyway, but somehow he managed to pull him out. So he could.
This is around 1958, 59 or so, 60, just before we moved out from Massachusetts to Utah. But one day you and Dean were in the woods,
yes,
and you found a puffball.
I do remember this, yes.
You remember the puffball?
Yes.
And you gave it to me as a gift. Explain the rest of that story to us.
Is that a mushroom? What is a puffball?
It was like a puffball.
It's a fungus.
It's a big fungi.
The size of an owl leg.
This was big.
It was a big
one
one.
of the biggest ones we had seen. Yeah. And we were probably the size of almost a baseball.
Yeah.
But kind of egg-shaped. And we gave it to the and
You came up. Hey, we found an owl leg. We found an owl leg.
Right. And Neil, of course, is always very curious, and had to have his nose up in it and see what it was. And as he was looking, I squeezed it hard, and it exploded. It exploded
Into my eyes.
And into his eye. All these spore. It was like a cloud when it went off. I didn't expect it to do that.
Oh, no.
You say that. Man.
Well, I expected it to do it, but I didn't expect it to be such an explosion. And after that, Neil, your eye swelled up.
swollen for a week.
About a week. I mean, you were totally closed. It looked like Muhammad Ali had gone to him. Really.
I had to put little eye solution into my eyes.
it
Little
was
cups,
terrible.
blue cups.
Yeah.
in there,
Wow.
Yeah, it really did a trick on his eye.
Thanks, Ken.
I was always trying to
I didn't ever
educate you.
apologize for that,
I was
did you?
trying to educate you, bring you along. You had to pay your dues.
Did
Just like-
Mom or Dad have any consequence for you for that, or you just let
Well,
you go
I
scot
think-
free?
I think they
It was a
did.
learning lesson, right?
Yeah, I think.
Ask Mom.
Another one.
She'll know.
Well, a memory I have of Dad and of his anger was the summer that we went from Carson City back to New York City to visit their family back there. And after it took about a week to drive across the country, 5, 6 days, maybe 7. But it was a long journey, I remember that. And we're getting into the outskirts of New York City. I don't know if we were in New Jersey or just coming into New York City, but the traffic was getting heavy, like they do on the turnpikes and the freeways back there. And some other driver on the road got Dad annoyed, and I saw a classic case of what we today would call road rage. Dad he had a cowboy hat. He said, "Give me my hat." He put on his little cowboy hat, and he started driving behind the other guy really fast and honking him. This is how we drive in Nevada. Don't you remember that?
No,
Coming
I
into
wasn't
New York
with you.
City?
I wasn't with you.
I don't remember
Yeah, I think
that.
you were when we went back to
I was
visit.
with you, but I don't remember that happening.
Maybe Dad did it a lot, and that's the only one I remember. I don't know, but that stood out in my mind anyway. Okay, share your experience.
My experience was I was a picky eater, and I was about 8 years old, 7 years old, living in
That's my
Clearfield.
Tell her I'll call her back.
And I remember on this occasion, everybody was sitting around the dinner table like always. It wasn't winter or anything. It was a nice warm day and that. But we had served on our plates sweet potatoes. And I'm sorry, if it didn't look like a potato, I didn't want it. It was sweet potatoes, and potatoes were not supposed to be sweet. And like Dad and Mom, just try it. Well, I'm sure I tried it before, so I took one bite, I spit it out, and I ran out of that house. I climbed up on top of the roof, and I hid there for a little while. That's what I do remember. I wasn't coming down to eat more sweet potatoes. So.
I think I remember that experience. Tell us about the bunny, David.
Okay, well, we had rabbits, pet rabbits and that, but one day, there was a rabbit. I was telling. I think
This is in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. I was telling Lynn, like, there's a rabbit out there that I'm going to try to catch it. There's a wild rabbit. And everybody else is doing things. Maybe we had company over that, but all I remember is I got down on my hands and knees, and I could see this little rabbit that was kind of hiding, and I'm sneaking up really slow. Now, normally, rabbits take off real fast, so I don't know how this happened, but I got right behind that rabbit, and I grabbed both of his legs, and he's doing all this and jerking around, and you know, I wish somebody else would have been there. I could have said, look, I got a rabbit. Basically gets away, and try to tell Dad or people like, hey, I caught a rabbit. And they're like, yeah, right, that kind of a thing.
Did you take any salt with you?
I didn't take any salt with me to catch those birds either. But no, I actually caught a rabbit. I was able, in a wild rabbit, was able to just grab his legs. And
You couldn't hang on to a rabbit?
Oh, I'm trying how small David was as a boy.
I'm like, anybody watch me? Look, I got a rabbit, but I'm further away from everybody else, so nobody's seeing this happening. So I'm trying to prove myself, like, I caught a rabbit. I needed your help. Like, I was calling, but nobody heard me calling for him. So it's already been shared, but we're going to a little place called Pyramid Lake. Good getaway and nice out in the middle of nowhere, beautiful lake, but you have to be careful. There's supposed to be quicksand, and you know, you're out away from a lot of people. So anyhow, what happens this one day, we're all out. You could swim in Pyramid Lake, and everything was going fine, and somehow I guess we were kidding, and Neil thought it'd be cool to pretend he was drowning. So he's out there, help, 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 and all I see is Grandpa come running as fast as he can to go get Neil and save him.
Very far out.
Very far out, and
But it was shallow.
It was shallow. All I remember is Neil got hell for that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. So a few times you really beat me. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. And
You ran out with his shoes and everything. You didn't wait.
Dad almost had a heart attack over that.
I do remember the first time I ever heard my dad use the F word. And
I've never even heard that.
But Neil was driving a car, and I got to like Washoe Lake. I don't know if I was with Neil or whatever, but he threw a rod in the car, and all I know is when my dad got out there and he figured out what happened, he was really upset.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And just the car broke down.
In the
But he blamed you. Like, anybody could have been driving the car, but the rod went out. You're the one that got yelled
It
at.
wasn't when we were going to Moab to the goosenecks.
No. This was in Washoe. We were in Reno. I mean, going on the way to Reno, just about where that steakhouse is or whatever out there, pyramid. I mean, A-frame building out there. But yeah, that one I do remember too. That's the only time he was mad enough to say that one time.
Okay, now I've got a story just opposite of that.
Okay, Ken was the older, Dean was a little younger, and we have the rest of the chain going down. But we always remember that Dean and Ken always kind of fought. Well, it was more that Ken would pick on Dean. But now I'm. This isn't in Utah. I forget how old I am. But I see the bedroom, I see the image, everything going on right now. Who's sleeping on the couch? Grandpa. Who's in the bedroom?
Don't wake up, Grump.
Pounding on Dean? Ken. Who's screaming bloody murder like he's getting killed because he's getting pounded on? Dean. Who gets woken up in this? Grandpa. Comes in the room. Who does he start smacking around? Dean, because he's screaming and he woke him up. Classic example. I see it clearly to this day. Like, I'm looking at him, this little kid, like, why is Dad hitting Dean?
Life is not
Ken's
fair.
killing Dean, and he's screaming for help, and Grandpa's slapping Dean around. Shut up, I'm there. You don't wake up Grandpa from a nap.
You know. You gonna say who I am?
If you want to.
We don't care.
Dominique Lloyd.
Okay. I remember when I was a kid that I would go to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and I was one of the the special chosen children that were allowed to play Grandma's piano. Because I didn't pound on it. I would actually play it. And so, Grandma would also, she'd play songs on her organ or on her piano, and I would sing along with her. And then she would play for different church functions and things, and it was a lot of fun. And memory of Grandpa that I have. Our whole family was staying out there one year, and I can't remember how old I was. I might have been 8, maybe 7, maybe even 9, I don't know. Anyhow, I'm laying out on the couch in the living room, and there was a fly that just would not stop bugging me. It's just buzzing, you know, I'm sitting there trying to hide under my covers, whatever. And this fly is just driving me nuts, and it's scaring me. I was a little kid. So anyway, I go over to Grandpa's door, and I think I knocked on the door a little bit, you know, just kind of timid, you know. I didn't know the rule back then of you don't wake up Grandpa. Okay, so I go there, and they just kind of, you know, just go back to bed, whatever. Well, you know, that fly just kept scaring me and all that, so I went back again. And this time I woke up Grandpa, you know, because I'm scared of this fly. And Grandpa came out of that room, and he kicked my butt, literally, all the way back.
Oh, you saw Grandpa in an angry, furious mood.
He says, "You get to bed right now. You stop worrying about that fly." And he just kicked my bum all the way back. So.
But you survived it. That's good.
I did survive it. I didn't bother him again after that. I knew better.
Yeah, okay.
One story before
Okay.
you were born, you know, I thought.
Your turn, Mom. Your turn.
Not till, Mom, she's had a story.
Okay, go ahead, Mom.
It was just a month before David was born, so it had to be in July. And we were at this little lake, I can't remember the name of it, in Massachusetts. But I took a couple of other kids along too. I think it might have been Tommy Gorman. And anyway, I had some friends from work along with me too. And Neil kept going out farther and farther in the water. And at one point he couldn't come back because it got quite deep. And he started yelling. Well, anyway, a friend of mine went out to get him. She had to go down a steep bank to go get him and bring him in.
It was a he, right? It was a man.
It was a lady.
Was it? I don't remember that.
Her name was Trudeau, Bridget Trudeau. And anyway, she saved your life.
I remember a man swimming me around the lake.
But anyway,
hairy legs.
this is what happened. She
Okay.
didn't do this. But then a man that was present on the beach came and got you, and he took you right out again and had you swimming and doing things like
I
that.
remember that part.
So that you would never be afraid to go in the water again.
Oh, I thought he was the one that rescued me.
Yeah, well, it was the lady.
I remember the water going up over my
Yeah.
eye.
Went up, it got deep very suddenly, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going.
But
That's all I remembered after that.
because he wanted you not to ever be afraid to go in the
Yeah.
water again, because it would have been.
Great. Thanks, Mom.
Okay, we get to Dominique.
Okay, we are at Dominique and Sterling's home. This happens to be 35th anniversary or let me start over. We're at Dominique's home, and she's 35 as of yesterday. So we have her dad here, David, my brother, and some of his kids. Anyway, Dave, relate what you can recall from that magic time 35 years ago.
Pretty much mine dead, but I do remember that it wasn't me, it was Kathy, and they had to induce labor because she had toxemia a little bit, so they decided to go ahead and induce the labor, and that made things
Natural,
really rough.
natural birth?
Natural birth, but it makes it a lot harder when you induce labor with what they give you, magnesium or something, and it was rough, and it was actually pretty long. I don't know how long. Grandma probably know better than I do. She remembers those things.
Was it like 18 hours or something?
It was a long
17
time.
or 18-hour labor.
It was that long.
12 hours or something. It was there.
I think it was-
We were there quite a bit. Now it was at 11 o'clock at night. You were born.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm guessing we went in. No, we probably went in about like 3 maybe around noon or something in the afternoon, and that's after a couple hours they decided to induce, and by that time it took many hours until they actually had her ready to come out.
So
Why did Kathy say she was
Mango lemonade maker.
I don't remember.
I thought I told him to do
Oh, Jimmy Cagney.
mango.
She looked like Jimmy Cagney just being born. Yeah.
Which flavors did you put in there?
So most people don't know who Jimmy Cagney is. Well, look him up in the old movie guides. In old movies, you'll see who he was.
Kathy and David came with Dominique. First time I saw her was in Carson City. First thing Kathy did before she even got in the door was, "Here's Dominique, here's the baby." I don't think she even got in the door. She was handing me you. So I got to hold her right away. So she was like, "Here."
My mom had had enough after 3 weeks.
quick, change her.
She just wanted to share.
So what I want to know is what did Kathy say after Dominique was born? No more kids?
Probably.
Never again.
Probably. But then after some time went by, it's just a womanly thing. She just, you see a baby and it kind of like,
It was a surprise.
well, it was, but still, she still likes seeing babies.
Okay.
All women, they just, for some reason, after they had a baby, it makes it.
They get baby hungry.
It's kind of a little, but yeah, Dean was a surprise. Keith was planned. Michelle was pretty planned. Yeah,
Pretty planned.
Pretty much.
Tell her, wow, sounds serious.
It sounds very serious. Maybe she needs to move to Fountain Green.
Yeah, maybe
never
she
gonna
does.
happen, darn it.
So,
Why do you know it's not gonna
no,
happen?
she would move. She will move somewhere that doesn't have near as much snow.
Yeah, she wants to have
So,
warmth all the time.
and when we win Publishers Clearinghouse, yep, think we can make that happen.
That'd be nice.
I know. It would be
Well, if
nice.
I made money, I'm gonna move out to Fountain Green and buy property out here, I decided.
What?
I'm gonna buy property out here in Fountain Green.
I'll tell you something, Neil. Here's part of the story that goes with Dominique. Kathy was the heaviest sleeper I ever knew. And even when Lynn and I would hop freight trains, we would be 150 feet away from the hitching yard where everything's crashing in each other all night long. She's sound asleep. Lynn, me, and Mark, or whoever was with us, were just all wide awake. Couldn't sleep at all. And when we had Dominique, in the beginning, every time I had to say, honey, Kathy, the baby's crying. But I'd go get the baby, and I'd bring the baby to Kathy and say, baby's you've got to feed the baby right now. And I mean, so.
Oh my God. You wouldn't be here otherwise.
I would have starved to death.
I've cried a long time.
I think I cried a lot anyway.
She broke that pretty fast. She stopped sleeping that hard after Dominique, I think. That was it.
You retrained her.
And when Dominique was a little girl, you were afraid of noise. And I took you into a bathroom.
Bathroom noises. I think it's bathroom.
Yeah, it was or something, but it was a
Fans in the bathroom.
And I went in. It was in the Genoa, Nevada. We went into the little bathroom there. She was with me. She was freaking out by the fan. She ran out or did something or started crying. I don't know how old you were, like 8 or 9 or something. I don't know. Just a little girl, and she did not like that. I remember.
Do you know I still have not overcome that fear completely?
I wonder what caused that.
I don't know.
Something.
Be it she has to have a fan running at night.
Well, I know. I do too now. I like having a fan at night.
But not the same kind of noise that
So I
they
don't
have.
have to hear that stupid dog I own
Some of those
outside.
bathroom fans when they come out are pretty scary sounds.
Yeah,
Sounds like a
they're
big old, chainsaws coming after you.
Chainsaws.
And Bert was born. We left the hospital and we both went up to Burger King. And it was my very first time at a Burger King. We each had a Whopper. Then we went home.
And the punchline
It's kind
is,
of interesting that we had a Whopper.
So they were just brand new at the time? Burger King was just barely open? Or had they been around for a while?
I don't even know,
Okay.
that's an amazing story.
but
And what's your
And I had a
take
little
on that?
Whopper, and Grandma had the Whopper.
And it was the worst Whopper they ever had.
Now, we'll put in a plug for Burger King. They make good Whoppers, but their prices suck now. Okay.
What did you say?
Exactly. I don't want that on record, Neil.
It is on record, forever and ever. Your great grandkids did.
Mom's house is a breeze compared to what Lynn would be.
Yes, indeed. Are we ever going to come together to help Lynn clean hers out, though?
No. Moms. Lynn has a husband and kids, and people in the ward. They can do it.
There's the matriarch, Eleanor Millman.
Where did you get him?
I found this little camera in the garbage. And there's her faithful companion. Here's Mom's, the new look to Mom's house. It's been rearranged and cleansed, and here's Ken helping to clean it out. All the way up from Florida. Help out.
I know this is John. I know, it's true.
We need a janitor taking a picture so we can get everybody.
Hi, Mom, Grandma, Great Grandma. How do you feel about having this group around you?
Oh, I feel wonderful. I'm really blessed.
Okay, everybody say hi, Grandma. Hi, Grandma. Silent night.
Oh my God. Well, you said it was last
Very good.
Okay.
Joy to the world, the Lord has come, and earth receive her King. Let every heart hear him rule, and saints and angels sing, and saints and angels sing, and saints and saints and angels sing.
If you don't do the other one.
Joyful and triumphant, O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and meet on the King of ages. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord.
There's Silent Night on 2:00.
Silent night, holy night, all is bright, all is bright, round yonder angel child. Oh, is so tender and mild. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace.
Let's just play that one for the last one.
Hear the bells on Christmas Eve, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Are we still on one?
you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jesus. Happy birthday to you. Today's the November the 28th, Thanksgiving, and we are at the home of Eleanor Myrtle Millman, our mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and we're going to ask her a couple questions. She's 90 years old this year. So first I want to ask some questions about her family background. So Mom, tell us about your mom and dad, their names, and then maybe about their family names.
Okay, well, my mother's family name is Huber. Her father was Otto Joseph Huber, and her mother was Amelia Benninghoff Huber. And she had one brother, Joseph, who was 3 years younger. My mother was born in 1903, and Uncle Joe was born in 1906. They were born on Staten Island, New York. And Otto was born in Strasbourg, Germany. It was Germany in those days. And his mother was from, we don't know, probably Frankfurt. And then my mother's name was Amelia Benninghoff, and she was born in Solingen, Germany, and that was September 30th, 1882. And she and her husband came to this country as babies. One was 9 months old, the other was 1 year old, but I don't know which is which. But anyway, going back, Amelia's mother and father were August Benninghoff and his wife Amalia Schitz Benninghoff. And they had 11 children. 3 of them died as infants. 3 sons whose names were August Benninghoff. And one of their children was my grandmother Amelia. And moving ahead a little bit, another daughter, Emma Benninghoff, became my mother-in-law at a future date. And the others in that family were Ernest, Charles, Adele, Amalia, Amelia, and I'm just trying to figure out the 9 of them right now.
9 kids, wow.
That survived. Yeah. And some of the children were born in New Jersey, in New York, and the United States, and the others were born in Germany. Just happened my grandmother was born in Germany. And my grandfather Huber, Otto Huber, his family came to this country when he was a baby, but he didn't come with his parents. He was the second child, and they had an older daughter when they came. And according to the system at the time for immigrating to the country, you only have 1 child, I guess. So my grandfather was assigned to his aunt. So he came as her child. And they got together on Staten Island. But the aunt that brought him to this country settled in Michigan. And she had a big family of her own. But going back to Staten Island, they came because on Staten Island there was a brick factory. They had come from Germany. The name was Kreischer. And they came for that reason. I guess they were the backers or sponsors. And there was just the right kind of clay on Staten Island. That's why the factory was set there. Later on, my grandfather, whose name was Michael, great-grandfather Michael Huber, was a trash collector. That's about as much as I know about that side of the family, except that Otto did have his brother Joseph, a brother John, and a brother Charles, and a sister Martha. That consisted of his family. And I think that's all I have that I know about on that side of the family. But going back to the Benninghoffs, Amalia Benninghoff was Amalia Schitz. And that's all I know about that. But the predecessor of Schitz was Williams. It became American and was supposed to have started the first steamship line between England and the United States. This is just family history as was told to me a long time ago.
Yeah, just anecdotes. Yep.
And all I can also, I don't know which side of her family became the musicians, but it was said to have traveled all over Europe as musicians. And there's also a woman who is a famous singer in England. And so I don't know what her name is or anything, but we have to pursue those things later. So that's on my mother's side. Now you want to hear about what's on my father's side?
Yes, your father's side now. Okay.
My father had a twin brother, and they were Fritz and Willie. That's the names on the baptismal certificates that was made out in San Antonio, Texas, where they were born. So they were christened into a Lutheran church, and it was probably German because their certificates are in German. Well, my dad's name was Fritz Koenig. And he was born on July 18th, 1865. And he was born in Chemnitz in Germany. And he was one of 13 children. He was number 7. He was in the middle. His father was a butcher. I don't know what his name was. His first initial is a G. Well, anyway, there were 6 more children born, but they had the last name Rudolph. So apparently, my great-grandmother, Caroline Schmidt, that was her maiden name, married again and had 6 more children. They were well educated. My grandfather and I would sit out in the yard at his house, and we'd talk about his life in Germany while he was growing up. And he would take a wagon to the baker with all the loaves of bread his mother made. They would bake it, and then he'd bring it back home. Another job he had was hanging out the laundry. His brother did the laundry, and he took it to the church and carried it up to the belfry with strung up lines and hung up the clothes or whatever things she washed. Then when it would dry, he did the same thing. He had to take them down and bring them in his wagon, bring them home. And he was taught a number of skills. One of them that I was interested in was how he could mend a cloth, like a coat or something like that. It was woven. He told me we took the thread out of it, and then, a part that didn't show, take the threads out and weave it exactly as it was in the original. You couldn't tell from the top side where it had been done. Only from the back side might have a few little threads. But he was, in his later years, he was a pattern maker. That was his last job at the dental manufacturing company on Staten Island. And most of my relatives have worked there at some time or other. My Uncle Bill settled on Staten Island, and he had different jobs as an insurance man for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. Then he studied diesel engines and worked in that for a time. And my dad was a mechanic, and both of them studied that during World War I. And I saw my dad's report card. He had all A's. Every subject was A. And, but anyway, that was where he learned his trade. And my dad married my mother, Eleonora Huber. She was born on August 24th, 1903. And she married my dad on February 20th, 1920. They were married in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. She worked for the dental company, which was S.S. White's dental manufacturing company. And she was a secretary to some of the officers of the company. And at that time, my dad had a partnership on the beach at Prince Bay in Staten Island. And that's when I became familiar with that part of the island growing up. Do I need my sister?
No, that's good for now. Thanks. Thanks, Mom. Roy Kilt would like to know what your relationship to him is.
Well, he is my cousin's son, my first cousin's son. So he's the same relation as Dad is to me, but on my father's side. So he's
Okay, so what
my first cousin once removed.
By a generation.
That's his relationship. His grandmother was my father's sister. Her name was Margaret. And she was born July 8th, 1890. She was born in Germany, in Berlin, and came to this country. And she was very small. But he has a brother that died. Roy has a brother, I think it was Charles or Carl. And so that's how he's related to me.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so where were you? What do you remember on Pearl Harbor, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, December 7th, 1941?
Well, at that time, we were all sitting at the dining room table with the radio on. It was a Sunday. And we were waiting for these comedy shows, Eddie Cantor and things, shows like that. They were very, very funny. And we were waiting for that. And we heard about this Pearl Harbor attack by the Japanese on Pearl Harbor. And at first it didn't seem to make a lot of sense, you know, but we couldn't be at war. They couldn't be at war with us, you know. But as the day wore on and the next days following, it was a big deal. And apparently President Roosevelt had done something to, well, I won't go into that part of it though, but it was really a very big thing. One of my friends from high school, we had just graduated the year before, he sat in front of me. His name was Frank Koser, and he was killed there at Pearl Harbor. He was on the battleship Arizona. And so that was just a year later.
Where were you the day that John F. Kennedy was shot? What do you remember about that day?
Well, I remember that we were living in Clearfield at the time.
Utah.
Clearfield, Utah. And Ken came home for lunch that day. And he said, "Mom, President's been shot." And I said, "Oh, come on." And he's always kidding me about something or other, and so I didn't believe him. He says, "Yeah, he really was. He was shot. He's dead." And so then we turned the radio on and found out it really was true. And it shook up everybody. everybody seemed to be drawn to the Kennedys for some reason. And that seemed to touch everybody and made it feel sad.
Well, speaking of John F. Kennedy, during the election of 1960, while we were still living in Massachusetts, we lived on Loose Road. We even had neighbors named the Kennedys. So what do you remember about the 1960 election? Who did you vote for? I know you didn't vote for Kennedy. What were your reasons, or what was your political philosophy back then?
Well, we were Republicans, but Henry and I were both Republicans, and we voted for Nixon. That was the main reason.
Why? Because he had been Eisenhower's vice president?
That was part of it. He was well-spoken. He just seemed to be a decent person, and so didn't have anything against Kennedy, except that we were Republicans. Okay. That's what you did. You voted for your party. Yeah.
Okay, Mom, today happens to be Dean's 64th. Yeah,
65.
65th?
Yes.
Okay, Dean will be 65 today if he were still alive.
Age.
Okay, so today is November 28th, 2013.
2013, don't forget that.
2013, yes, I was about to say that.
He didn't say it before on the other one.
I know. Okay, so anyway, 51 years ago, when Dean was 13, he rode his bicycle across the United States. And of course, for a year before that time, while he was 12, he was preparing for the journey. So why don't you share with some of your thoughts or feelings, what you remember about that time, about why you let him pursue this journey, and what you thought about it?
Well, Dean told us he'd like to take a bicycle back east to visit his friend Bobby Willett, who he'd gone through school with. And he talked a little bit about it most days, say what he planned to do and how he wanted to go. And his dad and I listened to him. We talked to him about it. We never discouraged him during this whole time. He knew that we supported him in it, no matter what we felt otherwise. And so he kept preparing. We let him do it for 10 months. He was busy figuring out things on paper, how many miles to stay. He had maps all around and everything. And it got to look like he had things pretty well set up. The way we understood it was just about perfect. And so 2 weeks before he left for his trip, he had all planned as to what day, June 1st. And he's going to leave from Sunset, Utah, where we lived at that time. And his dad pretty much gave him the go-ahead to go on the trip. He trusted him. But he said that he'd make one suggestion. According to his